Larry Longworth here.
Tom Martin here.
Bill Lance here.
Barb Stephanie here.
Okay, a reminder that this is a work session, there will be no motions and no votes. It's here just for us to discuss certain topics that we'll need to address next month, or next weekend at our February meeting. Reminder of this meeting, we will not entertain any comments or questions from anybody in the audience. It's strictly a board work session, and we're permitting everybody to be here just so they can understand what's currently going on. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that? Okay. The first topic that we're going to talk about is working on changing the covenants to work on the septic issue. We've decided that we're going to let Eric, Missouri Department of Health, take a stab at the first go before we take it to the covenants committee. Once we can get him to give us an idea of where we need to go before we can put it on the ballot, we'd like to get some ideas from him, have him write the first draft, get it to the covenants committee, and let them wordsmith it or rework it how it needs to be before we can put it on the ballot. So, I think one of his first questions to us is, until we can get this resolved, would we be willing to accept an evaluation in lieu of a full inspection? Due to the fact that we have properties that cannot be inspected, would an evaluation be acceptable to us until we can get the covenants reworded and set up to the standards? So, I'd like everybody to kind of think about that. Yes?
I remember him at the meeting, when they go out and look at a septic system, he said there's no pass or fail.
I believe he did say that.
And what he does, he gives them it's an evaluation. This is what you need to take care of. And I'm willing to go with that. I'll tell you that right now. But that's coming straight from him. And, but I would almost that if you did a pass or fail situation here, 75% of the septic systems in here are all gonna fail.
I'd say more higher than that, probably.
I'm just being nice. I'm being nice.
The reason you don't understand is everything would have
One
to
person
pass.
at a
through.
time. Hey, gentlemen,
Exactly.
hey, one person at a time, so
Like
everybody
I
gets
said,
it.
I'm being nice with that, because I've had mine worked on this year, or last year. And they said, both people I've talked to said, these systems, unless you get into the new stuff, they will fail. No two ways about it. So, I'm happy with that, because if you produce that you've done the work that you're supposed to, then we should all be satisfied with that.
I agree with you. Yes,
Mine's a
Christine?
little bit different question. Did I misunderstand? I think I understood that the lawyer was answering some questions regarding the changing of the septic in the covenants. Is that wrong or is that correct?
And we were just asking him, go ahead, Jen.
Well, what we had asked him was, until we can update the covenants for new wording, if we would be, if there were any legal ramifications of us now allowing evaluations until that gets changed. That's kind of where we were going with that, to make sure that, you know, if we want to do this, to make sure that, you know, it wasn't going to bite us in the ass, which doesn't matter, but anyway, so that's kind of where we were with that. I mean, he obviously has to look at it after everybody, like even with the
Oh, yeah.
other, the proposed changes on anything else.
Yeah, because if it
It has
goes
to run
to
by
covenants-
the attorney.
Yeah, we have to run it by the attorney too.
So, pretty
My
much,
concern is more, according to the bylaws, anything that goes to the lawyer must go through the trustees first or be approved by the trustees. That, as far as I know, was not brought to the trustees before it went to the lawyer.
I did ask him about that, and I said
That's because it was an ongoing matter that had already been talked to the lawyer about.
Okay, and we also need to discuss that, because we have been trustees now for 4 months. We have not been up to snuff on what exactly all this septic stuff has been that we are now responsible for dealing with. I'm feeling very left out.
Yeah,
I hear
Steve, I feel like decisions are being made without including all the
I do
board
too.
members.
I do too.
A
A lot of the existing board members had made up their mind how things were gonna go, and things have just continued to go that way. Well, I don't feel like any major decisions, you're the chairman, and you're there to break a tie and to be our direct line of go-to, but it's not your or any one of our place to make decisions. As a board collectively, we're supposed to make these decisions together, all major decisions. You know, minor decisions, we're not talking about buying a ream of paper, but
Or
all,
closing the office because of bad weather.
Right.
all major decisions need to be run across the whole board. Major disciplinary actions, major purchases, of course, but, you know, and decisions to turn people's cards off and leave them off, even though half the board doesn't agree with it. I was never asked or included in that.
Neither was I.
And
These decisions aren't one person's to make, they're the whole board's to make. If we can get a majority of the board that agrees, then I'll eat crow and shut my mouth. But if I'm not allowed to say, then I'm not representing like I promised.
That's exactly what I feel.
And I am sorry, but I feel like we have been, the new trustees have been left out in the cold, and I almost sometimes feel like it's deliberate, and I personally resent it. I would really like to bond and become a board. We need to work together. We are all here for the property owners of Goose Creek. We need to know what's going on.
So,
We've had this
so
conversation.
if we,
We've had it before.
so if we need to ask the lawyer a question, because this was an ongoing thing, are you stating that I should have asked the board before I contacted the lawyer?
I
Yes,
believe you should.
because you're saying that it was a prior board? We've
They're
been
not
on the
here.
board for 4
We don't-
months,
We don't know what's going on with that.
and
The
we don't know
departments
the
aren't here.
history. I really would love to see a timeline on when the lot was purchased, when the problems began, what's been turned in, what hasn't been turned in. All we know is what Mike said that day in the thing. And I think Mike did a phenomenal job of averting a really ugly situation. But I feel as trustees who are responsible for the future decisions, we should be knowing.
Okay, well, we can work on it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just,
I
when we
raised
asked the question.
I spoke with you, and I spoke with you, Zella, and I did lose my cool, and I apologize that I did do that, but I was voted in not just by one person, I was voted in by the property owners that voted for me. I am chairman of the admins, and if you're gonna tell Lynn, then I need to know. If it's important enough to tell Lynn, I should be included in like everything that's going on in the office. I am hearing it second, third, fourth, fifth, we've already had the conversation, and I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, I'm just saying, that's not what I got to be a trustee for. I'm here to represent the people. And I don't know, I can't do my job as a trustee. And I'm not gonna answer to just you people, no offense, the other trustees. I'm representing the other part of the community that voted for me. So
Exactly
I
the way I
want
feel.
everything that goes on. I'm supposed to be told as chairman, you were chairman of the admin, so you know what it was supposed to be. Everything that you're supposed to be told. If you wasn't told that, I mean, that's not my fault, because I wasn't here. But I know I've read in the book what it says I'm supposed to be included in and what I'm supposed to know, and I'm not hearing it all.
I
mean,
thought,
it's
I,
second, third.
and I guess, because I assumed that all the new trustees were brought up to date on what happened, because this has been going on for
Absolutely
a
not.
year.
No,
I know it's been over a year.
Few text messages is what I've gotten.
it's been, and I'd like to see it put to bed myself.
Well, that's what we're here to talk about.
And I also want to say, I really like the group text messages. I don't know, Zella, if you can't get in on the group text, because I get single text from you.
I get them.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah, she gets them.
and mine-
Well, we get it, I
She
get
sends
text
them.
from you, okay.
But mine comes in the same way too. It doesn't look
It
like
is
it's
a group
going to,
text.
it is a
Right.
It is
Okay.
because
a-
I
Same
called
way
her and
here.
asked her.
Okay.
Same way here.
That's
Because
a
it-
confusing thing until you figure it out.
Because
I haven't
the way
figured it
that,
out.
the way that it used to be, it showed you that it was a group.
Yeah.
But now, like when I get it, it doesn't show that it went to all of you guys, it just comes to me and, because I
When I
confirmed
send
it.
out a text from me, it goes to everybody.
Good, because I was
It's
not
not
aware of
one
that.
person.
And I want to add, you know, even though I feel like we're being left out of some of the decision-making process, the cooperation that I've gotten working with the office, working with Zella and that to help maintenance do their job has been great. So it ain't all bad, it's
Oh,
just,
no, I'm not complaining,
you
I
know,
just,
but like you said, as a board,
We got
major
some,
decisions, the board needs to be making, not one person.
we got some bumps in the road that we need to iron out. And,
we're 3-4 months into it.
Yeah.
and-
4 months into it.
And it's still happening, you know, major decisions are being made without consulting the whole board and all of us having a say in it, and that should not happen.
As far as disciplinary action with employees goes.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm
I
talking
know
about. I'm on
exactly.
your committee too, I didn't know nothing about it till after the
No, I'm
fact.
on the
Why?
committee, I've never had a meeting. There's never been a meeting.
I'll say what I want to say.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Now, we do have a property manager. And what is our property manager's job description?
95% of it.
To take care of daily matters, to take care of daily matters, including all personnel.
That's what I'm at.
And that's what her job is. We all don't need to be involved in small disciplinary actions.
Were you involved in that disciplinary action, Tom?
I'm chairman of that department.
So,
And
that doesn't make, just like she's chairman of
Was
all of
I
us.
involved in you deciding to sell the chipper shredder?
Yeah, it was talked about in front of
Yeah, we're talking about
everybody,
it.
absolutely. Absolutely, and it isn't sold at this point, but yes, you
I
were
didn't have
involved.
any idea.
Matter of fact, I had a maintenance
Go to
meeting,
that
you were
meeting.
invited and you didn't come, so don't go there.
I'm saying, I was not aware of that.
It
Well,
was in the
you
minutes.
should have made
I
yourself
found it
aware.
in, I found it in the minutes. It wasn't.
Absolutely, so I've been, you know, I do a lot day-to-day with maintenance, checking on them and everything, but everything major that comes up, I try to make sure everybody knows.
And we do have another problem with all of our committees and stuff, with the, security department. As far as many trustees that we have on that chair, that is going to be considered a trustee meeting, because we have more than 5
So who
trustees.
chooses who gets to be and who not gets to be?
Well, we have too many people on there.
how can we say we got
Everybody.
Well, I was
every
the only one to be on there because we.
Because if you've got 5, that becomes a trustees meeting.
Yeah, Zella and I
A
talked
quorum.
about this. We can't have that many on the committee.
It's never come up in the past.
I'm only on 2 committees, so I'm
We've never
asking
had
not
that
to
many
be taken
people
off.
on one committee.
We need to work on changing.
Legally, Larry, it comes up as
I'm not gonna argue that
It
point.
has to be an open meeting.
Let me also say something while we're sitting here. And I mentioned this before we all got here and started. This setup for the trustees to meet is much, much, much better than the setup we have at the rec hall. At the rec hall, at one end, you cannot hear what the other end is saying. And that's trustees. That's not property owner stuff there. So I think this configuration where we can talk to each other and be a team is much more beneficial than a long line.
I agree with you there.
I agree with what you're saying, but I can also served on a board when we had the trustees meeting here, and we had people sitting outside.
But we can
No,
put
she means-
tables up
she
like
means
this
setting
at
the
the rec
table.
hall.
Yeah.
Set the tables up differently,
Yeah.
cause I agree, because if I forget my hearing aids, I'm like, okay, you know, and sometimes the speaker, you can understand, sometimes we have issues, and I know especially, you know, the audience has a hard time too, you know, if
We can set the tables up.
Yeah.
And that's just a suggestion to make it flow better among us.
I had already suggested it one time before too. It is hard to hear.
It is, it's
Well,
very
of
hard.
course, you know, I like to look at somebody when I'm talking to them, not see the side of their head. So, you know, you're right.
Or have to bend over
Sometimes I
like
can't
this.
see them at all.
Which would be a blessing.
I'll have this table set up this week.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other comments or about the evaluation, assessment, inspection thing? I mean, you can read back through the minutes from the December meeting,
And so
where
basically,
Eric explains a lot of it.
we're gonna allow him to give us a guideline, and we'll agree on it if everybody agrees that it goes to.
What he's gonna give us, from what I understand, is some wording that we can start with, that we can go ahead and the covenant wording we can work on with the trustees.
Right. And the ones,
Have you approached anybody on the covenants committee yet to be? Because I would recommend Barb, but she's got a lot of the stuff in her computer already. That would just be my suggestion.
the only
She's
person
kind of a reporter.
the only person that I talked to about it was Bob Reeves.
Mhm.
And before we were gonna ask Eric to make the first stab at it,
Mhm.
I asked Bob and he said he thought that was an excellent idea to let the state start it
I'm not disagreeing.
and then give it back to the covenants
Mhm.
and let the covenants go from there. And then once it goes to the covenants, comes back to us, we vote, we approve, and send it to the attorney to approve.
And you
Okay,
probably
so that's only-
he's willing to actually draft it, or?
Eric?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, he's willing to help us, yes, absolutely.
So it goes to the attorney after it comes back and then.
Well, it would, Eric would have to draft something. Then we would send it to the covenants to work on, if they have changes, suggestions, comments. Then once the covenants gives it back to the board has to review it and determine if it's acceptable to the board. And before it can go on the ballot, then it would have to go to the attorney. That's my understanding. Is that correct, Barb?
To see that it's written
Yes.
properly.
Okay.
Now, can we, you said the draft that he's gonna do, I think the board should see a copy of that draft too.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, well, you didn't
The
say
board and
that,
the
that's
covenants.
fine.
Yes,
But we get a copy, of it, we can see, and when they make their changes, we can put them together and
Yes.
see what changed.
yeah, the board will work with the covenants committee on it.
Right.
Also, while we're talking about septic stuff, and I had said that this board hasn't really been brought up to snuff on the history, I don't want 10 or 12 copies made of all this paperwork that's gonna have to be shredded in the end. I would just like access to the stuff so I can see it, or see a timeline and know how things progressed, what was turned in, what was not turned in,
Okay.
and I'm just asking for that.
Yeah, we don't need a
No,
full.
and I don't wanna kill, I don't like to kill
50-page
trees.
thing.
Okay, I just need to know exactly what you want.
A timeline of when the property was purchased, when they
Which
were
property?
Ernst.
Okay,
Well,
I have all that.
this dealing right here, this isn't just
No, it's not just
Just
Ernst,
for
but that's what.
about
Pacific
Michelle and
said.
Jay. This.
That's
is
why I was
all
asking what
property.
property you wanted.
Because that's what precipitated this whole thing, and that's what's cheering it on.
Right.
It's not just.
And I don't wanna kill the trees, but
I know.
I just would like to
Well-
be able to see what was turned in, what the permit was for.
So I guess everybody needs to think about it, review the minutes from December where Eric goes into greater detail.
I
And
say,
then
go-
next
I say
month-
go with it.
I see.
We can't make a motion.
No, not today.
You have to wait till.
We'll have to wait till next week.
I know, but I'm just saying, I've been looking at this stuff back and forth, front and back,
Right.
and I talked to him a couple times on the phone, and I just verified that that's what he said. He said, yeah, that's what we do. He said, he said, he's been doing it for a long time, he said, I can't do a pass or fail. It's just that difficult. And the thing is, like I said, when I said about the other ones in here, Mother Nature plays a big problem with these septic systems. With the weather we get, the way we get it, it's hard, cold, sudden warm, the ground's moving, shifted, and that's what affects a lot of it. So, but I told him, I said, I'd be real comfortable with that. So,
Okay. So we'll, meet up at next week's meeting and we'll put together some sort of a motion and
okay,
have the board address it next.
Jim's gonna be the one that's gonna be doing it.
Well, I'll work with somebody here.
No, I mean, Jim,
Is working with the Department of Health guy.
Yeah, she'll let him know.
yeah.
And then when will we decide on what we're going to do in the meantime until we can get the covenant rewritten?
That's what we were just talking about,
Okay.
whether or not we can
That's
accept
what we
it.
will, that's what we will
So
decide.
That's what we'll decide next
So
week.
that would be a motion for the meeting.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
we take no motions or votes at these work sessions. It's just to discuss it so that everybody knows what we're gonna
Okay.
talk about.
So right now, our biggest question is how we're gonna handle it till we can rewrite the covenant.
Yes, whether we're willing to take septic evaluations in lieu of an inspection.
And just FYI, once we make the proposal to change the covenants, at that point, the property owners vote on it.
correct.
Right, we can't change it.
We can't change it, they do.
That's right.
I know, but
Are
the
we all
whole
good?
thing that the property owners voted in goose hunting,
So really, nothing,
It's a pet peeve
nothing
of mine.
changes. in
Yeah, well,
that.
that's too dangerous. I
Well,
know,
we got,
but
we will have to come up with some kind of thing, because that we can be flexible with, or we're gonna go in here and shut everybody's septic down?
That's why we're gonna work with Eric, because different situations
No,
require different
no,
things.
like he was saying, we can't do anything until we change other, we've gotta make some flexibility between now and the time this gets voted on. That's why I said, we're gonna, cause one of the things he said, if your house is dormant for 6 months, you need to have it looked at.
That's what we just talked about, an
I know,
evaluation.
but so, we shut down, okay, I'm just using an example, we shut down our pool, and that septic system's not used for 6 months. Do we get it inspected before we open it back up? That's the kind of input I felt. whether it should be that way or not, but I'm just saying,
No,
you're
I don't
talking
think so.
dormant, you're talking a dormant system. So, I mean,
And we won't know that until we see his recommendations.
right, I understand it, but we just need something to work with. I know our covenant is vague, but we need something so we don't, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna use
No, no,
an example.
by all means.
We don't need this. We don't need this example, this situation. We need to be real, we need to, even if we have to call up the health department, say, hey, what can we do to make this work?
We did that. That's why he's getting involved.
Well,
We can make an interim, we can say that this is the way it's going to
Okay,
be
go.
handled until the covenants get changed.
Because,
And we need to make sure that it is universal. It's used
I
for
agree.
everyone,
because
not one.
Larry, if you remember, and maybe it wasn't.
we're in the dark with this.
Maybe it wasn't mentioned in the minutes, but I brought that up, that I called St. Francis County and got a different answer. They got 20 people on a sheet to do these inspections. I called St. Genevieve County and they said you gotta go through Bob. Bob's the only one that does inspections in St. Gen County.
That-
Now,
No,
that's the kind of answer you.
I know that, I've gotten the answer too, but, I called down St. Gen, and all, same way you did. And there is a, they actually told me that you need to go to the state of Missouri's website, and there's inspectors they got a big list, and they have to be registered with the state of Missouri.
Well, yeah, they told me that, but they have to be, before they can do an inspection in St. Gen County, this gal told me they have to be approved by St. Gen County.
No,
He said that wasn't true.
No, I was told
Well, I
that
agree
wasn't
with
true
that.
either.
I
All they
was
had to
shocked
do,
when I heard that answer.
because all they had to do is be on the Missouri statute list, and they can do it in any county, because, and I'm using nurses. I have paperwork that shows all the work they've done, and I know everybody probably got it. I did go
No,
on.
they don't.
we don't.
That's what
Okay,
it is.
then-
we were talking about.
Okay, I do have
That's what
it.
I asked for, we look at it, it's taken care of.
You're welcome to my copy. But anyway, I even went on the website. I heard that they didn't think they were licensed. The employees actually have to carry an ID card, and it has their number. Hang on a second.
Inspector number?
They have an inspector number.
Yes, I do.
And, so, but I do have it here.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I didn't agree with what the answers that I got.
Right.
And the same thing happens when you call Jeff City.
Thank you.
Depends on
Okay.
who you talk to, is what story you're gonna hear.
Well,
That's any county.
they'll tell you that the DNR is only involved before it goes in the ground. Once it's in the ground, then it's the health department's.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you call the health department, they tell you what you gotta talk
Yeah,
to.
everybody's going like this.
Okay, I went online, this is the company they use, and I didn't write all the employees' names and stuff down, but it says their license number and their date it expires. Each employee has one of those. So, they're in compliance with the state. It's just that, I just kept digging. I mean, there was 5, 6 categories on there. I'm not trying to drag this out or anything, but there were 5, 6 categories that I had to click through just to find that one thing. And anybody's welcome to this. I mean, this is not just for me. I've been doing a lot of digging with this ever since it happened.
We
So,
all need to know,
right, and I agree.
and we all need to look at the same stuff.
I agree. But we've been left, and like you said at the beginning, we've been left in the dark. The previous board members that you've been here, you knew about this. But the ones that came on, we got bits and pieces, and it's like we're sitting there at the table of a puzzle, trying to find those pieces and put them all together.
Well, the information's, if you ask for it, I've never been turned down for anything I've asked for. So all this information is there if you wanna ask for it. My biggest concern is that the decisions of how to proceed have been made without bringing them to the whole
Well,
board.
that brings me to Randy, when me and you and Zeller were in the office that day, and you got a little upset with me, and you said, well, you're with them, you're on board with them, and you're sitting there looking at your phone with the copies of what he's got,
And
and
you
that's
said,
when
I
I
haven't
stopped
seen
you, I said,
this.
first I've seen it, I was right there looking at it on your phone. So if anybody else here had the copies, I didn't have them. And
Well,
that's
that's
what
the
I
thing, the
think that's what
decision
it
to
is,
handle
we're
it
not
was
getting it.
made without
It's
consulting
delegated.
everybody. I know. I know that.
That's
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
The original decision was made by the hands of the covenants committee, and they were having trouble
covenants committee has no right to make any decisions, only suggestions. So that's null and void.
Well, except that they set up the rules that we live under.
Correct, but they don't, the covenants committee has no authority except to make suggestions, correct, Barb?
Yes, and that's what we do on everything. Nothing gets to the property owners to vote on until it's gone past the board.
But what we're talking about,
And in
Steve,
addition, when some of the stuff was done, at that time Barb was property manager overseeing the covenants committee, so it was a combined effort. Now we've had, what, are you number 5 or number 6? Property manager, something like that.
But I mean, where we're going with that
It still went
is
to the board. It still goes to the
It
board.
still goes to the board, except for the geese one, that didn't come from covenants committee. That came from the board.
but,
I can't take any credit for that one.
and the board could make a decision to put something
Oh, yeah.
up for vote without consulting the
They have.
covenants committee.
They have.
The board is the last line. We are elected to represent and control to collectively together. What's happening is 2 or 3 people are making the decisions, not the whole board. That is the complaint that we've got.
And my question, Barb, can I ask you a question? In reference to the goose situation, geese, whatever, so it did not go to the covenants committee, it went straight to the trustees? And
It was initiated by the trustees. Period, the end, and it went on the ballot.
So technically, that's not.
That's
No,
not bad.
there's no, there's
It's
no.
okay. It's
there's
good
no
to vote on.
Trustees
The
can
trustees have the right to
do
do
it.
it.
Yeah. Can put it, they can't put
Okay,
anything
this is where I'm
into
confused,
effect.
is because and please bear with me.
Yeah, no.
I'm trying to understand this, what I'm hearing is, nothing comes to the trustees till after it goes to the covenants.
No.
No,
If that's the
no.
case, okay, so,
The covenants committee is appointed by the chairman
By the trustees.
by the trustees, to make suggestions of proposed changes to the covenants.
so if something's brought to the trustees. are
We
supposed to
have
run
the
it by the
right to
covenants?
consider it. We don't have to put it on there, the board has the final say.
No, I understand that part, of it,
Or-
but are we supposed to let the covenants know that?
We have no due obligation, but anything should be divulged at a meeting before, we wouldn't make a decision to put something on the ballot without talking about it in the meeting. And the goose thing was brought up several times before it was put on the
I'm
ballot.
just trying to figure out,
It didn't come
like,
out of thin
if
air.
we don't, of what the covenants committee is in reference to us and the procedure or protocol, how it goes. So if it's okay for them to bring it to the trustees without going through the covenants committee, then as trustees, do we send it to the covenants committee or we
No.
just vote on, then why do we have a covenants committee?
To make
I mean, that's
suggestions.
just my personal opinion.
The covenants committee, here, let me,
No, I read what they're
Okay.
supposed to be doing, but that's what I'm saying, it doesn't make sense
we,
if it's not going through the covenants
we as a
committee
board, if we have something that we want the covenants committee to address, we as a board can present it to the covenants committee for them to review.
And
If-
work on it.
and work on it, right. And then,
Research.
if the covenants committee sees something that they think that needs to be brought to our attention to be worked on, they suggest it to us, correct? Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead, Barb.
The covenants committee will take one of these items and then work on the wording. Where does it need to fit into the existing covenants? You just don't slap these things at the end. You know, it has to go into the right section. And then we evaluate the wordings. We beat up on every word until it is consistent with the way the covenants were written. And hopefully that the majority of the property owners will understand what the change is about. And then, when we get done, then we give it back to the board, and they then decide that they like it, they don't like it, goes on the ballot, it doesn't go on the ballot. But that's up to them. All we do is really, we're wordsmiths in this regard. We also are some of the few people that have read the covenants in its entirety, and we understand the covenants. Now, I'm sure all of you have read the covenants, probably multiple times.
Yeah, some parts of memory.
Yeah. And, you know, so that's not a problem, but not everybody does. And all we try to do is put stuff in the right place, in the right wording, so that the majority of the property owners will understand.
Does that clear it up for you?
So, just to make it short and sweet, it does not have to go to the covenants committee, it can come straight to the trustees.
The trustees can initiate it
It could.
without going to the covenants committee.
Someone could bring up an issue to our attention and say, hey,
Bring it to their,
we need to
so
look
they're
at
to be
this.
involved. I guess what I'm trying to say is the covenants committee is to be involved regardless if it goes to them first or whether it goes to us.
No.
They have been involved, but they do not have to be.
That's
The
what I was
trustees
correct.
have the
There you go.
ultimate
That
word.
was, that's what it was getting, okay, that's
Okay.
what it,
It's never really been an issue, and it's to our benefit to allow them to help,
Yes.
because they're doing a lot of the legwork and the research.
Correct.
So, but do they have the power to force us to change anything?
No.
That's
No.
the elected board's position. Right. So,
And historically, there have been two things that we worked on and worked on and worked on, and the trustees turned down. End of discussion.
makes sense, thank you.
Okay, can we move on to the next topic? Is everybody good?
Good.
Okay. Sometimes we have a hard time getting qualified candidates to work in here. Fortunately, right now, we are fully staffed at this time, so
We can still use a couple more.
we could probably, for the summer, yeah. So it was suggested that we possibly do some sort of an employee referral program. We had some employees already who have referred us some good candidates to be hired. So I was just gonna kind of throw that out there, if that was something that the board might be interested in.
such as,
They did it where I used to work. Now, it was a different kind of situation, but like, some sort of a nominal monetary amount, like an incentive.
an incentive, yeah.
Mhm. And, it would have to be based on, that employee would have to refer the person in, the person would have to be qualified for the position. If they were hired, then once they got past like their 90-day probationary period, you could pay like a certain percentage of the referral. And then if that employee stayed on for, I would say at least a year, or, because we don't want a 6-month turnover.
Right, are we going to do it where they get a monetary amount when they are hired and then after their 90 days?
Well, that's-
I know we talked about
Well,
that.
I mean,
Is this something you might want the covenants committee to work on?
well, no, because it wouldn't go
They
in the
can decide,
covenants.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's an,
Oh, it doesn't have to go in the
it's,
covenant,
no, it's an
This
employee.
this could go in the employee's handbook.
Yeah, it's an employee incentive.
but it still could go through the covenants committee.
I just-
Just a draft.
This is a girl that I used to work with, she copied and pasted from me, and it didn't print all the words, but, like, before, ever,
Before you do a referral process, you run it through spell check,
I went through spell check.
referral. You got referral.
Well, we,
I didn't type it, sorry.
that,
Sorry,
that will be done.
yeah. But like where I
Ask
used
the
to,
wordsmith, or
Yeah.
covenants committee.
I didn't even notice that.
I did, but I didn't say anything.
But I was just curious to see if